Hey everybody, this is WireDogSec back with another video for you guys. Hopefully you're all having an awesome day today and ready to take a look at this room here on TryHackMe. But before we get into it, you know what to do. Get out the usual housekeeping items by hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel if you're new here, and then commenting below on your thoughts and opinions on the information shared in the video. Alright, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright y'all, today's video we're going to be taking a look at this log operations room. Learn the operation process details. And let's go over task 1 real quick. The first thing that comes to mind regarding log analysis is to open the door to the adventure of looking for a needle in a haystack in case of an instant investigation. Are you lost in the log space and wasting your precious time? If so, it's time to do something about log configuration. In this room you will learn the configuration approaches required to manage and analyze logs in an operational context, and the log information you learned in the previous introductory room. Learning objectives: understanding the logic of log management and configuration, familiarize with log configuration approaches, experience the log configuration process. And of course, before you take a look at this room here, you may want to take a look at Intro to Logs, and they got a couple other items highlighted there. And one thing to note is that this is a subscribers only room. So if you're not subscribed to TryHackMe with like a premium account or whatever they call it on here, then you won't be able to access the room. But hey, you can follow along in this video and maybe learn something. So let's go ahead and continue on to task number 2 here. Log configuration. And I do want to note that there isn't like a VM or anything like that. The practical application in this room here is basically just reading everything in the text and then answering the questions. All right, so if you don't like that, then I recommend just moving on to another video or so. But for everyone that's sticking by, let's go ahead and get into it. Task number 2, log configuration. Log configuration options. Do you dare to configure your logs, or are happy to be lost in the madness of thousands of lines? In log operations, there are multiple concerns about configuration approaches, and identifying the suitable configuration approach could be a pain point. Log configuration is a multifaceted operation that addresses security, operational stability, regulatory compliance, and debugging needs. Adequately configured logs are crucial in cybersecurity, operational efficiency, regulatory compliance, and software development, providing organizations with comprehensive system, asset, and management statistics. Let's look at and understand the scopes and differences of common purposes of log configuration. And as you can see, we're going to cover the security logs, operational logs, legal, and debug. Security purposes. Logging and configuration for security purposes are typically planned to detect and respond to anomalies and security issues. For example, configuration to verify the authenticity of user activity to ensure authorization, control, and timely detection of unauthorized access. The main focus areas of this approach are anomaly and threat detection, logging user authentication, data, ensuring the system's integrity, and data confidentiality. Now, if you're working in like a SOC and such, this may be one of the main logs you're going to be taking a look at. These types of security logs will probably be like 90% of the job you're looking at, right? And let's go ahead and continue on to operational purposes. Logging configuration for operational purposes is usually planned to detect and respond to system errors and identify action points to enhance the system's performance, continuity, and reliability. The main focus areas of this approach are proactively creating reports and notifications for on-system and component status, troubleshooting, capacity planning, service billing, and operational purposes. If you work on the systems, like your system admin, network admin, what have you, you'll probably be looking at these logs for the most part, right? Because you want to get things identified and fixed, or maybe a user has reported there's issues with a certain application or a certain server, whatever the case may be, and then you're going to be taking a look at these operational logs to troubleshoot, right? And then also when it comes to service billing, right, you want to know how much money you're spending so you can keep it within budget, or maybe you need to increase the budget because you're spending so much money. Let's continue on to legal purposes. All right, logging and configuration for legal purposes is similar to security purposes. It is usually planned to stay compliant and increase the alignment with regulations and obligations. Here, the laws, regulations, and compliance standards will vary depending on the work scope, the data being processed, and the service area being provided. Therefore, each enrollment will come with a set of responsibilities and guidelines to follow. The main focus areas of this approach are alignment with standards, compliance, regulations, and laws. You got the ISO 27001, you got COBIT, GDPR, PCI, DSS, HIPAA, FISMA, what have you. Legal compliance example: a company must have an active central log management system, adequate log configuration, 12-month long log retention for logs and affiliated system logs, at least 3 months of data must always be ready to search, system and compliance security checks, and overall yearly audit checks to meet PCI logging compliance. Debugging purposes, logging configuration for debugging purposes is usually planned to boost the system's reliability and enhance provided features by discovering the bugs and potential fault conditions. This configuration scope is not always implemented in the production environment and is mostly used for testing and developing purposes. The main focus areas are increasing visibility for the application debugging, enhanced efficiency, speeding up development processes. All right, so debug ones, you're probably going to be looking at a lot of these if you're like a developer or software programmer or what have you, right? See, make sure your application is working as intended. And and that's absolutely true. Usually these are not going to be turned on in a production environment because a lot of times if you turn these debug logs on, then it will overwhelm the system and maybe it'll take it down, and you don't want to cause an outage in your environment, right? You could be in some hot water. Now let's look at this question here. It says, which of the given log purposes would be suitable to measure the cost of using a service? Now go ahead and pause the video and see if you can answer that question yourself if you are a premium subscriber to TryHackMe. If not, then we're going to go ahead and continue on here with the answer. And the answer is going to be operational. Remember, we were talking about the service billing up here, and that's going to be um, if you're going to be tracking like budget and how much you're spending and whatever system you have going on. So let's continue on here. The second question says, which of the given log purposes would be suitable for investigating application logs for enhancement and stability? Well, go ahead and pause the video and see if you can answer that question yourself. If not, we're going to continue on here, and that's going to be debug, right? It says it up here. You're looking at these debugging logs to make sure there's no issues with like reliability, stability, what have you, in a certain application or system, right? So you mostly used for testing and developing purposes. So let's continue on here to task number 3, and it says where to start after deciding the logging purpose. Where to start and what to do after deciding the log purpose. If you already have an objective and scope plan but need help knowing how and where to start, you can use the meeting and brainstorming methods with your team. The meeting might sound like a passive action, but it will start the ball rolling for brainstorming, which will help consider multiple aspects and create a draft plan. Remember, each log configuration purpose is planned and implemented to fulfill a different goal. Questioning is one of the most common ways to identify needs and facilitate planning. Remember, each implementation is unique, but common base questions must be answered in almost any log configuration planning session. You can use the following questions as a starting point and broaden the list according to the answers. Remember, you will need additional steps like creating a detailed plan, choosing tools / techniques or technologies, establishing monitoring and review / analysis processes after answering the initial questions. Just questions to ask in planning, meeting / session. What will you log and for what purpose? Asset and scope of logging purposes. How much are you going to log? Detailed scope. How much do you need to log? How much are you going to log? How much are you going to store logs? How are you going to protect the logs? How are you going to analyze collected logs? Do you have enough resources and workforce to do logging? Do you have enough budget plan, implement, and maintain logging? Okay, now we got a couple questions down here below, so be sure to pause the video and then try to answer the questions yourself. If not, then come back to the video and we're going to find the solution to it. So let's go ahead and continue on here. And it says, you are a consultant working for a growing startup. As a consultant, you participated in a log configuration planning session. The company you work for is working to get compliant to the process payment information. The given question set is being discussed. Which question answer can be as much as mentioned in the PCI DSS requirement? And that's going to be how much do you need to log, right? How much do you need to log? Let's check this hint out real quick, see what it says. And it says compliances have strict rules to meet, so it is a need. There you go. Since PCI DSS is a regulatory requirement. There's going to be specific things outlined in that particular area, and this happens to be one of them. How much you need to log. So let's go ahead and continue on to task number 4, and that's going to be configuration dilemma, planning, and implementation. And let's see here. Configuration dilemma reflects the challenges of implementation as highlighted in the previous task. Each log configuration scope comes with responsibilities, guidelines, and challenges. This means that the log configuration and logging are more than a simple practice of enabling logging from the assets and surviving among thousands of lines. Now, there's a lot of text here to read, so be sure to pause the video and then read the rest yourself. We're going to skip around just to save on time here. And let's take a look at this little area down here, translating requirements and aspirations to operational level. Let's take a closer look at exactly how the dilemma arose. What happened? When did it happen? With time, data, if possible, where did it happen? Network, system, folder path, and interface. Who, what caused it to occur? From which log source? And that's going to be under base requirements and aspirations for better insights. Is it possible to have more data, more details? How sure can I be that this is true? What is affected? What will happen next? Is there anything else that requires attention? What should I do about the incident? Let's continue on here. Um, let's see. Let's just go ahead and go down to the question here. It says the session continues and your teammates need your help. They will negotiate for logging budget and operational details. As a consultant, you remind them of a vital point. What requirements are non-negotiable? So be sure to pause the video and go back and reread up here, see if you can answer that question below. And we're going to continue on here. And the answer is going to be operational and security requirements, right? So let's go up here again where it actually talks about that. And that's covered right here. Meeting specific operational security requirements non-negotiable, while also considering the feasibility of improving the capability by implementing additional data and insights. So let's go ahead and continue on to task number 5. And task number 5 is going to be principles and difficulties. Logging principles. Logging is a critical aspect of the cybersecurity and IT operations. It is a process that is a burdensome as functional and requires active resource utilization. Therefore, it is crucial to implement a proper logging operation and ensure its effectiveness and efficiency. There are multiple principles which help achieve the mentioned goal. The table below highlights some of the essentials. And let's just take a look at a couple of these. Got collection here, define the logging purpose. Collect what you will need and use. Do not collect irrelevant data. Avoid log noise format. Log at the correct level and detail. Implement a consistent log format. So be sure to pause the video here and take a look at the rest here. You got archiving and accessibility, monitoring and alerting, security, and continuous change. Challenges. Challenges are as much a part of log management as principles. However, most of them can be addressed in the planning section. The table below highlights the main challenges of logging. And go ahead and pause the video here and go ahead and read through all of this here. Right. So let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit more. And this is where do we go from here. The mentioned principles and challenges are common and can vary according to your case. However, the main point is adhering to logging principles and proactively addressing challenges. And we got a couple questions down here, so be sure to go back and reread everything if you haven't done so already to answer these questions. Now, the first question says, your team is working on policies to decide which logs will be stored and which portion will be available for analysis. Which of the given logging principles would be implemented and improved? Well, that's going to be archiving and accessibility. So let's go back up here and try to find that. Archiving and accessibility. Just define log retention policies and implement them. Store log data and make sure the important part is available for analysis. Create backups of stored log data and used systems. Well, that absolutely fits this answer here, what they're looking for. And let's go ahead and take a look at the second question here. Your team implemented a brand new API logging product. One of the team members has been tasked with collecting the logs generated by the new product. The team member reported continuous errors when transferring the logs to the review platform. In this case, which of the given difficulties occur? And the answer is going to be process and archive. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Process and archive, right? Remember, it's on the challenges here. We had looked over this here. But anyway, let's go ahead and get down to it here. process and archive, having multiple data formats to deal with it, parsing different data sources and formats is time consuming and error prone. Balancing the log retention can be challenging, especially when dealing with many compliance regulations and standards. And that absolutely describes what they're experiencing here. So let's go ahead and continue to task number 6, which is going to be common mistakes and best practices. Logging is a powerful and valuable tool for cybersecurity and IT operations, but harnessing this power and maximizing it takes solid planning and implementation. Otherwise, logging would become inefficient, making things difficult to do, tedious to manage, and draining resources. Now, be sure to pause the video and go ahead and read over this here. I'm going to continue to scroll down and get to the question area here, and it says, as a consultant, you are doing a comprehensive risk assessment and notice that one of the development teams implemented a custom script to generate logs for an old system which omits logging at some phases. And it's asking you, would you call this a mistake or a practice? And the answer is going to be a mistake. It even sounds like a mistake. Why would you want to omit some logging in some phases? That doesn't really make sense to me, but they did it anyway. But you're there as the consultant and you're finding these risks in their environment and you're informing the client, like, hey, you may not want to do this and you should fix this immediately or an X amount of time. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of these mistakes and best practices. Mistakes don't. Logging sensitive information, you don't want to do that. Creating logs by yourself. Having uncollected logs, collecting everything but not analyzing. Collecting logs without proper planning and configuration. Having systems that lack the plan / required log configuration. Skipping the scale, testing, and functionality analysis. Focusing on edges and skipping the internal systems and analysis. Searching for what you want to find and not investigating what you see, forgetting that the process takes the form of proper planning, management, and analysis. And that this could actually fit a few of these in here, right? Skipping stuff here, focus on edges, and skipping the internal systems analysis. So yeah, this is definitely a mistake. You don't want to do that, right? And this does happen in the real world, especially, let's see, you're collecting everything but not analyzing. Now that can lead to some overload, and it can also lead to overload and alerts, right? You got alert fatigue going on, and that can happen to a lot of environments, especially if you work in a SOC. You're just getting bombarded with alerts left and right, right? And eventually, some people get tired of it, and they don't put as much effort into those alerts than what they should, and then next thing you know, there's a data breach going on. So this is pretty much it. Let's go ahead and take a look at task number 7, wrap it up with the conclusion here. It says, congratulations, you just finished the log operations room. In this room, we dive deep into log operations and discover the background and management side of the technical logging and log analysis operations by covering fundamentals of log configuration, logging use cases, common mistakes, and learn best practices in logging.